it's really just about creators finding who their top fans are that want to support them, like no matter what. And I think that really taps into the concept of, right, like people in the creator economy talk so much about the 1,000 true fans, right? But I fully believe in that. And I think, yeah, even if it's like 10 true fans or even one true fan, if there's only one person that really loves your music or really loves your art and wants you to succeed, like that's the person that will keep you going.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is episode 31 of Visionaries. If you are new here, this is our twice weekly live podcast. Granted, there's not a second one this week because it's Thanksgiving week here in the States. But this is our twice weekly live podcast featuring some of the most successful and influential people on the internet, in video games, internet culture, and the media. Previous guests on this podcast included Ludwig Ogren, Atrioc, Cutie Cinderella was here last week, and so we've had quite the revolving door of very successful people that are changing the way that we consume media. And so today we are joined by Rosie Nguyen, also known as Jasminericegirl. She is the co-founder of Fanhouse. She is also, if I'm correct, 25 years old. Her and I are the same age, and she was named, both her and I named as a part of the Forbes 30 under 30 class this year, end of last year, at the end of 2021. And if you're unfamiliar with Fanhouse, although I would imagine many of the people here present are, Fanhouse is a creator platform where you can share, you can get followers. It's got a lot of similarities, I would say, to Patreon and OnlyFans and some of the others of its like, where you can gain followers, people can pay for access to your content, and you can share them amongst them. Is that accurate, Rosie? Is that a valid way to describe it? How would you describe the company and what you're building?
That's pretty good. It really depends on how much time I have, but and what the person I'm talking to knows. But usually I'll say that it's kind of a combination of like Patreon and Discord, right? So I think Fanhouse really combines creator monetization with community. So we enable creators to have tools like, a paywall, gated, exclusive content, along with, community features like house chats, like listen goals for musicians, and so on.
And where did the idea of that start? Where did the Fanhouse idea start?
I will apologize if this runs a little long, but I think there are a lot of things that go into the founding story that I care a lot about and are really important to me. But essentially I'm a creator first and foremost, right? And I've been a content creator maybe for 3 years now. Twitter is my main platform. I'm sure a lot of the people here know that. But I started Twitter in college. And this was at a time in my life when I, was providing for my family. So my family grew up really low income. My parents never made more than like $10,000 a year. And my mom single-handedly supported us for a long time until college. Actually, she got run over by a car and then was not able to work anymore. She's like permanently disabled now. And so I started providing for my family. And I did a lot of like work study, things like lab experiments. I don't know, all kinds of like hustles in college that you think a broke college student would do. I did. My handle is Jasminericegirl actually, because all I ate in college was like plain jasmine rice. All the money I would make, I would just send back home. All the money I got from school for like books or food or like housing, I'd send back home. But anyway, so fast forward to senior year of college. That was when the pandemic hit us in 2020. That was my senior year. And if you guys don't know, what happened to college students at the time was everyone got kicked off of campus. And so I lost the work study job and all these side hustles that I was doing to provide for my family. Okay. So I was very like, oh, like me, right? Like I still need to provide for my family, but I don't have my work study job anymore. And there's not a single place that was accepting like new people, in person, right? That was COVID when it first started. And so I really had to look online, right? And at the time I had maybe like 30,000 Twitter followers, which is a sizable amount if you're thinking of a room, but not a lot if you're thinking of like, monetization. Like brand deals don't give about you if you have 30,000 followers on Twitter. Like no one cares about you. No one is giving you any kind of money except what I found, the people that follow you. So at this time I shared a lot about my story online, and there were a lot of people that really resonated and really supported me. Right. Like I had been making kind of, Twitter content that were like a lot of jokes, a lot of like, sex positivity, things that make people laugh. And I think I was giving something to people that they wanted more from. And when I talked about how hard it was to, I don't know, just do things like eat every day, I would have followers that would just Venmo me, like $10 or like $20 for dinner. And that money, honestly, at that time really saved my life. And I think it really created a light bulb moment for me that was like, hey, as a creator, maybe brands or sponsorships or whatever don't care about me, but I have followers that do. And so this feels really meaningful to me. And how can I tap more into that, right? And how can I make this two-way? And it's not just you Venmoing me, but I can really bring you in as a part of my journey as a content creator and a part of my content. Right. And so I looked into a lot of platforms and I used every platform under the sun in every way. Like I used Patreon, I used Twitch, I used OnlyFans. I even did stuff like I had a private alt Twitter account that I would charge people to pay for. And I just tried every different way of monetization. And I think I really, through my experience, found what worked and didn't work. And honestly, most of the platforms I really just hate in some way or another. Like OnlyFans was so bad for my mental health. There was so much harassment there. Patreon was just kind of boring, no offense. But so I was like, I kept saying to myself and to my friends, I was like, I wish there was just a platform that did this better and did this right. And I was very lucky that I met my co-founder, Coy. He's a really good friend that I met through Twitter, where everything starts. And Corey is a Stanford grad that was kind of just like, why don't we just build this platform together, right? Like you get the space, you're in it, you're living it, you're breathing it, and I have the skills to build them. And that's kind of how we founded Fanhouse 2 years ago. Sorry for rambling.
No, that was a good answer. What's interesting to me about the platform and the people that I know that use it is that interaction. You said in your answer that Patreon is boring. It is. I agree. It feels very one way, which I think is like very different than most of the audience wants. And I think, and this is something we'll dive into maybe a little bit later, but OnlyFans in particular feels like its reputation is for not for safe work or not safe for work content. And so, it's a pornography and everything else. Like that's what people know it for. Even though there are safe for work content creators on OnlyFans, it carries the reputation, and therefore the audience base that uses it tends to act a certain way. And so I find it interesting you kind of found this middle ground where it's like it has that level of like one-to-one interaction and what y'all are doing, but it's not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it is safe for work. That is Fanhouse's sell, right?
Yeah, I think what we really saw is just that it's about like content creation, right? It doesn't have to be any one thing. It's really just about creators finding who their top fans are that want to support them, like no matter what. And I think that really taps into the concept of, right, like people in the creator economy talk so much about the 1,000 true fans, right? But I fully believe in that. And I think, yeah, even if it's like 10 true fans or even one true fan, if there's only one person that really loves your music or really loves your art and wants you to succeed, like that's the person that will keep you going. And again, I really like experienced this firsthand because I was at this point in my life where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to keep providing for my family. And my followers gave me that answer, right? I really found this alternative path to success that was from your direct community. And like now, yeah, I have like something like 200,000 followers on Twitter, right? But the number that's almost more meaningful to me is the number of people in my fan house. Because those are the people that I'm like, oh, they are there for me through thick and thin. Like they want to support me. They want to, be a part of the journey. And yeah, to the interactive part, like it's things like, I don't know, I draft tweets, in my fan house all the time with my followers. And that's not a behavior you'll ever see on like Patreon or OnlyFans. Yeah, because it wasn't built for that. I think Patreon, even in the name itself, right? Like patrons of art, it's very like a museum. It's like you pay $5, you get to see what exhibition is there for the month, and then you kind of leave. And then, of course, OnlyFans. I think I read a statistic once that 98% of content on OnlyFans is not safe for work. And obviously, when that much of the site is one thing, that's what people are going to compare it to. And that was very much my experience there. Even if I would say like, hey, I'm just here to do singing covers, or hey, I don't want to do a certain type of content and I draw my boundaries, people do not care. They just do not care.
Yeah. I feel like OnlyFans as a platform is really kind of struggled to find what it is. We've seen like they've had issues with credit card processors because credit card processors don't want to deal with not safe for work content more broadly, and they were going to scale back on it, and then they were like, oh, whatever, right? Like it was just too late, and they found another way to do the same thing. It's an interesting time. I do want to ask you about sort of the target market here from a consumer perspective, because I find this really interesting. We've talked a lot on this show about parasocial relationships with creators themselves, and especially some of the more thoughtful people. Like Atriarch was one of the early guests on this show. He was worked at NVIDIA. He's now full-time co-founder of a creative agency that's producing events for creators, etc. But is also a creator himself now, but comes from a professional background different. So like this, he was more experienced when he became a creator, not like the many who become creators at very young ages. And parasocial relationships is always a really touchy subject, because in a way it is, I feel like it makes influencers more valuable, in the sense that like people trust what they care about. Like a younger audience, like traditional advertising doesn't really work for them. Like a TV ad isn't what's going to sell them. But if it's you, or if it's someone else who they trust, another creator that they trust, endorsing something, saying that they like it, that's probably pretty meaningful, and it's meaningful from a conversion perspective. But I also feel like that can be dangerous in a lot of different ways too. In sort of, especially for women who, these sort of creepy online men feel like they're connected to in a way they truly are not. Walk me through the balance of that, because I think it's sort of bigger part of the actual user base of your product, at least to some degree. Probably not all, but I'm sure you do have some people that are like that on the platform.
Oh, I have so many thoughts on this topic, both just again from my experiences, and especially being a woman online, and especially with the kind of content I put out, right? Like, again, I talk a lot about my sex life, right? And for and that just invites a lot of people who think that means they have access to my sex life, which is not the same thing, right? It's like, I am making a joke. I'm making a funny joke, first of all. And it's like there for you to laugh, not for you to then DM me and say, I mean, I could pull my DMs for you like right now and just read, I don't know, the first, my third message just says titties. I have messages that says, it's me, your future husband. I have something that says, hello, I think I'm in love with you. I have one that says, do you want to play games sometimes? I want to be the person as, how do I wife you? It goes on. And I'm sure most women's DMs are like DMs of big content creators always look like this, right? And to some extent, I mean, I don't know. I'm a big advocate of like shooting your shot. Like, if you want to be friends with someone, message them. You never know how it goes. But a lot of these do steer parasocial, because it is very weird as a creator to be like, do you genuinely think that I would date you, or have sex with you, a random stranger on the internet whom I know literally nothing about? Like, and there's, I think how I define parasocial, behaviors or relationships too, right, is like, that is very much a one-sided, misguided, and like false belief about your relationship with the person, right? And plenty of people have these relationships with creators, and that's why creators talk so much about it, right? Like, I am not your friend. And I think I have to draw that line every day too. Like, there are people in my comments sometimes where like they'll be like, hey, why are you talking about being single and you haven't given me a chance? And I'll reply with this meme that I love, but it's like, this guy tweeted something that was like, I hate it when women say they're hungry, or they're single but don't want to date me. It's like saying you're hungry and you won't eat the hot dog that's lying outside on the street. and I said that all the time, and I'm like, you gotta understand, you're a stranger, and I don't know you. Yeah. I don't want to be with you. And I think again, so that behavior is not unique to any one platform. Like, it happens to me on Twitter, it happens to me on Twitch, and I have to constantly redraw boundaries. And of course, it happens on Fanhouse too. Like, I made a post on Fanhouse recently that was like, this is not a dating site. Like, don't try to date me. That's weird. And I think, like, again, so because I have those experiences, it is very at the forefront of like what we build, right? And really informs our product. It's like, hey, let's put in safety tools. So I will say Fanhouse is one of the only platforms I can think. I think it might be the only subscription platform that requires people to have a phone number in order to join, right? Because that alone gets rid of a lot of like harassment and like weirdos and like stalkers, right? And once you like do anything bad and get banned, like you can't go and make a new account. We also take your credit card info, so that's linked to your profile. So it's like really like you can't make a new profile with the same credit card. So that's like one place we do that's like, hey, you need to be a good, community member if you're joining Fanhouse. Other stuff we do is we have a lot of tools for creators to like set their boundaries, right? Like if you don't want house chats on, you can turn them off. Like you don't have to have that. If you don't want DMs on, you can turn them off, right? Because that was something that I really struggled with on OnlyFans, was like all of my messages were, I mean, if you think my Twitter DMs are bad, right? Like my messages on OnlyFans were 100 times worse than that. Like I had
they're probably very vile.
I know, exactly. I had nightmares about those. And it's like there was no way to protect myself from that. And so I think we build in the tools for creators to draw their boundaries. But I think ultimately it really is up to the creator to let the fans know what the relationship is, right? But again, and I think it's in the name too, like Fanhouse in of itself. Like again, you're here because you're a fan, not a friend, not a potential partner, you're a fan of my content. And if you're here because you want to support me, you're totally welcome. And if not, then like I'm probably going to block you, or you're going to see yourself out because you're not getting what you want.
Yeah. I want to talk about your Twitter a little bit because I think it's really funny and it goes viral all the time. And I'll give a little bit of context. I'm sure a lot of people in the space are familiar with you, but for the people listening on AOD or VOD, maybe not. So your Twitter is what I would say is the definition of horny on main. And I find it really, really, really funny. I'll read a couple of the tweets, and then I want to reference and then I'll reference the information feature about you because I'm an information reader, and I actually think it explained this kind of eloquently and funny at the same time. So in the past week, you've tweeted things like, "Why is it called a cocktail? Is it because you want after drinking it?" You tweeted, "Listen to your heart, suck it." You had tweeted the sexual tension between you and a random stranger your age at the airport you lock eye contact with for half a second. And trying to find one of the more other, there was one I saw in like the past week from following you that was really, really funny too. Yes.
Oh, I was gonna name some off the top of my head that I really like.
Go ahead.
I'm like, you're kind of picking the mid ones. Like those are recent, but some of my most proud work is if you're an Avatar: The Last Airbender fan, have you seen?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course.
So my neck, my back, and my crack. Long ago, the four nations lived in harmony. Thank you.
I remember that one.
Yeah, this one I actually tell people in real life sometimes, and then they laugh, and I get really proud. I also had one that was like, reading porn and masturbating, call it clitorature. I was really proud of that one too. There you go. Yes. Okay. Anyways.
Yes. So, I think you said it earlier, the sort of the difficulties being a woman influencer and dealing with some of the harassment, et cetera. But certainly even in the business world, there are people that judge you, et cetera. And so the boldness of being who you are, I commend it, first of all, but it's like, be who you want to be, and unexpressive. And there was that passage that is your Twitter cover photo from the information piece, which is, one would imagine Silicon Valley, with a track record of underestimating and underfunding female founders, wouldn't take kindly to a founder who tweets about her, quote, gorilla grip coochie, close quote. But Wynn and her co-founders have been remarkably successful in the fundraising department, raising a $1.3 million seed round led by Morris Jr. and the chain smokers Mantis VC in May 2021, followed by a $20 million Series A in late 2021. And then it quotes one of your investors who says, "It's so true to herself, and it really showcases her personality. And that's what works for her in the market that she's building in." And so I want to use this to talk about a couple different things. One, I want to ask you how much of your Twitter is a marketing device and to draw people in, and how much of that is you just being funny because you're a funny person? Or both.
I almost want to say so little of it, like I intend as a marketing device. Because again, what is really important to me is being true to who I am. I think authenticity is one of my biggest values, and there's a bunch of like childhood trauma that goes into this that we don't need to know about. But it's just like when I have been true to who I am, I think it's really helped me and my family. And So yeah, I mean, even before Fanhouse ever started, like my first viral tweets, like, and I can quote my very first viral tweet. It was when I was in Singapore in 2019. I hadn't had sex in a really long time. I hadn't gone on a date in a really long time. And then this guy asked me on a date, and I was so excited. I tweeted, in caps, like, just got asked out on a date. I'm about to suck the out of this boy's. And it got like, I don't know, like 7K, something like that. But like, that was my first batch of followers. And then I ended up doing this whole series of like days without sex jokes. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's stuff like day 100 without sex. Like, I don't know, sat on my like floor so that I could feel hardwood under me, like stuff like that. But I was really good at it. And I had a new pun for every day. I did this for like 100 days. It was something really crazy and impressive. But anyways, I have always been like this. So my tweets, I think are, I mean, it's not 100% who I am, right? I care about a lot more things than that, but it is something that I do believe in and I'm passionate about. Like, I love sex. A lot of people do. And I believe that it's okay to talk about it. And one of my beliefs with Fanhouse too, right? Because Fanhouse is a creator company, is I believe that being true to myself as a creator first makes us a better creator platform, because I think that means we really get it, right? And my role at Fanhouse is actually a really interesting role. I'm co-founder and creator. And really what that means is, yeah, like I devote a lot of time to content creation. I devote a lot of time to talking to creators, to understanding what people's problems are, what they need, what the feedback is, and then bringing that back to the team. And when I look at other creator companies, I feel like they miss that. Like, sometimes I look at teams where I'm just like, if you talk to a creator, you wouldn't be building this. And I think a lot of people must think that about the platforms that they're on, right? Like, we think that about Twitter a lot. You know, I have said that about Twitch a lot. It's like, who is making these decisions? And it's usually people that, whose decisions it isn't really impacting, right? But I think everything that we do at Fanhouse, every feature that we build, or even every bug that we have, like, I feel very strongly because I still provide for my family. My parents still don't work. I'm still kind of the single breadwinner, for us. And like, we have a lot of debt, whatever. But yeah, I rely very heavily on like my Fanhouse income still to provide for my family. And so, yeah, whatever we build, like, that's kind of at the forefront, is that, hey, this is how this is going to impact me. And then these are all my friends. I know that's how it's going to impact us. And I think it really helps us inform like better decisions.
The other part I want to ask about that is exactly what it's talking about there. That investor of yours that was quoted in the information piece is very kind, obviously. And I think he's right. Like, it's nice to have exactly what you just said. Someone at the front of the company who's authentic, not only to yourself, but you are sort of the person you want it to be a part of Fanhouse, the type of person you want to recruit to be a part of the platform. It was built, as we've talked about for the past 20 minutes, built around some of your personal experiences, with some of your personal experiences in mind as a creator. Ultimately, though, that's not most of the venture capital people out there. And I'm sure as you all get bigger and the fundraising has to get larger, and we've talked plenty about the recession in the economy here or at the moment. But as those rounds get bigger, you're going to get some institutions who think a certain way about that. And I want to ask you, like, does that concern you? Do you worry about that, kind of what they think, and if it could affect the company at all?
No. And I'll say why. I think one, I think I'm a person with very strong convictions. I think I have like a strong moral code that I live by. And I don't do things that I believe are like harmful to people, right? Or like bad for society. But yeah, talking about, sex in a positive way is not one of those things where I'm like, I don't believe, I really don't believe people or women should be shamed for being horny. Like, that's not a crime. And I think if somebody were to judge me for that, that's probably not a person that I would want to work with. And so I'll give kind of another example here, right? That where I've gotten kind of in trouble, quote unquote, in trouble for my social media before. And it was in college. And this was even before I had a Twitter. I used to have a Snapchat where I post stories like to my friends, right? But it would be, really chaotic stuff. Still, I've always been this way. But it would be stuff like I'd go out drunk and then I'd come home drunk and then I'd be like, I'm going to shower with my clothes on in the bathtub because that sounds fun. And then I'll like make a post about it. And then anyway, so I was rushing for sororities, which as people might know can be very high, or like strict about certain things. And I met people and they really liked me and they were all my friends. And they ended up rejecting me. And the reason they gave me was that, yeah, my social media was too much and would not be like a good representative of their sorority. And I think I was very sad about it for a while, right? Because, yeah, you're a freshman, you want to belong, you want to have friends. But then I really, looked inside and I was just like, well, do I believe what I was doing was wrong? And I was like, no, I'm fucking funny. Like, people reply to my stories and they say it's funny. So like, you're welcome for the content, first of all. And then I was just like, yeah, I mean, if there are people who are not gonna, like, and the other part was just like, well, this is me. All right, this is me. I am chaotic. I am funny. I like talking about topics that are taboo to people. And if someone doesn't like that, then I probably don't want to be in a group of people like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it just really comes to show, at least for me, that decision was right. Because, I mean, yeah, this last year, right, I find myself on Forbes 30 under 30 for social media, and no one else in that sorority is. So I think those are the kinds of experiences I've had where it's like, I know I'm doing the right thing. And again, yeah, we have 20 million in venture funding from people that do believe in what we're doing and do believe that it's good. We have a creator on our team that is really true to her word and authenticity. So,
yeah. Well, hopefully that continues. Truly, because again, I find no harm in your Twitter. I don't think anybody really does, but there are some people that, that feel a certain way and think a certain way and not call it what it is, sexism. It's annoying. Yeah.
no,
So.
I mean, and that's okay too. Like, I'm a big proponent of like, block things you don't want to see, right? Like if my tweets are like, yeah, like really gross to you and make you frown, like you can block me and I won't be offended. I just get really offended when people try to tell me how to live my life, right? Like they come in and they're like, oh, you're this or that with your life. And it's like, you have no idea who I am, first of all. Like, you don't even know my first name. So don't give me advice.
Yeah, fair. I want to ask you about the balance of being both creator and executive in a sense, because I struggle with this a lot. So for some context, I run a production company. Between all of our contractors and team, we're about 15 people deep, and I'm having to both run that business every single day to, I'm solo founder. So I'm like in the books, doing all the contract stuff, working with all the legal team, etc. But also like, I am a producer, so I'm like actually having to do a lot of the creative work. And at the same time, I am also writing a Substack that requires probably about 20 to 25 hours a week. So I'm like 70 hours deep. And it is so hard to juggle kind of all the different things. Every founder has this problem. But I think it's unique to people who kind of have, like yourself, one track career here and one track career on the other side. And they're both very equally important. So how do you find that balance? And have you struggled to find that balance too?
Oh, every day. I'm struggling all the time. Honestly, I think a lot of this year for me was really characterized by burnout. Like I would remember like maybe for like at least 6 months on end, anytime I went somewhere or like I met someone in person or like a friend texted me and they asked, how are you? My response was just like, I'm stressed and I'm tired. Cause I don't believe in really saying I'm fine or lying, but yeah, it was, there's a point where I was like crying like at least once a week or maybe like every day just from how tired I was. And yeah, no, it's tough, right? It's like, I don't even know how many hours I'm putting into like what is quote unquote like Fanhouse specific work. But in a way it all ties again, right? Like, well, if my content creation is bringing people to my page, which brings people to Fanhouse, or like it, right? Like I'm meeting new creators, which then end up on Fanhouse, like everything kind of ties together. And then, yeah, and vice versa, like you said, right? Like these are two things that are equally important and I'm equally passionate about. It gets really hard. I think I have ideas all the time that I can't see through, especially as a creator, because I don't have the time for it. Or like, I don't know, like I can't get partnered on Twitch to save my life because I have freaking like 300 concurrent viewers, but I'm not consistent enough with streaming because I can't be, right? I work all day and then exactly. I have no idea which days I'm going to, end early or be free or have energy. I have no idea. I like every time I stream, it's like at that moment where I'm like, okay, I'm free now. I can stream. But yeah, I've gotten rejected like 3 times because they're like, you need to stream more. And I'm like, I can't stream more. This is all I have in me. Yeah. That said, I feel lucky that it's like, I get to do something that is so rewarding, right? That I'm so passionate about that like a lot of the times the hours don't feel like work, right? Like when I get to like meet someone the first time or talk to them or like help someone, get started on Fanhouse and then see, how it's like changing their lives. Like that is so, so meaningful for me. And like, that makes everything worth it, right? But to your point, I mean, I'm actively trying to figure out all the time, like, what is the right balance? And I have a really supportive team, luckily, at Fanhouse, especially my like co-founding team. And I've shared this stuff too, where I'm like, hey, honestly, guys, like when I am working all day and then I'm going to like meet creators or go to events or go to parties, like that's exhausting. And then I end up just not having any time. Like it's like almost like, like 9 a.m. to like 3 a.m. And I'm like, can I offload some things here? And they've been so receptive to that. And I'm really appreciative of them.
I want to ask a couple different questions about the platform more broadly. So first, I'd be curious about how many creators, if you had to estimate, do you think are on Fanhouse at the moment?
I think we have something like 1,200 active creators, so like monthly, and then something like over kind of 4,000 creators lifetime.
And how many people do you think are on Fanhouse, roughly from a user base perspective? People that are subbed, fans, more or less.
I'm not the numbers person. I could text Koi and Koi would know. I think it's like in the database, which I don't monitor. Sorry.
No worries. And if you had to guess, again, this is all anecdotal. I'm not expecting you to have all the numbers. How many people on the or how many creators on the platform are? How do they identify? If you had to break them out by gender in particular.
Most of the people on Fanhouse right now are female, and a lot of them I would say are like Gen Z, like 20 to 35 age range. And then a lot of them currently are like Twitch streamers or like Twitter personalities.
And so for you, what is scale? Like, what do you obviously $21 million in venture funding, et cetera. That comes with a lot of expectations. In terms of like, what does successful scale look like to you, and how do you get there, in your opinion?
God, the question that every founder asks themselves every day.
Yep.
I mean, for us right now, like growth is obviously really important, right? Like how can we find new creators to put on Fanhouse? And I think for us, it's been exploring a lot of other verticals of creators that we don't have, and like what kind of creator is missing something that Fanhouse can serve. So very recently, actually, we've been building a lot of features for musicians. We did a lot of user research, and musicians are one of those types of content creators where like, one, they're getting paid dog shit, and like labels are exploiting them, taking advantage of them, and like they don't know who their top fans are, and they're just constantly like trying to throw, spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, right? Because all the incentives are like misaligned across these platforms for musicians. So it's like, right, they need to find who their top fan base is, and they need tools to help them monetize and to grow. And so we've been building things like I mentioned, like listen goals earlier, right? So that's something we built where like a musician could drop a song into a listen goal, post it on Fanhouse, and they can set a goal of like, help me get 10,000 streams on this song, right? This new song I released. And their fans can listen to it, and every time they listen to it, Fanhouse would track who is listening, how many times they've listened, and then that bar goes up. So you would know if your Fanhouse helped you reach this 10K, and then maybe, release a music video. And you'd also know which fan contributed to that goal the most, right? So then you'd be able to know, oh, this person listened to my song 500 times. I should thank them, or I should. Yeah. So again, back to identifying top fans, growing, and then monetizing things like tip goals or community goals are a thing we have. And then we've also built things like Spotify wall integration, right? So like Fanhouse, most creators right now use our paywall. That's like $5 to subscribe or $10 to subscribe. But Spotify wall is something interesting where you can pay to subscribe, or you can link your Spotify account. And if you have an artist in your top like 50 artists on Spotify, you get to subscribe for free. So it's a way for like, again, top fans to just verify that they're a true fan and be able to join. So that's something that's kind of a new market we've been really exciting about, and we've been getting kind of like new small musicians on to try the product. To answer scale. So that's like, finding new markets, and eventually, I want Fanhouse to be a product that works for like everyone, right? That's a creator on the internet, especially when we're progressing towards a time where like, maybe everyone becomes a creator someday and everyone needs to monetize, right? And what is like the go-to tool for that? A part of being a venture-backed company is where like you want to grow, month over month and be able to raise again. And eventually, fingers crossed, become like a unicorn, right? And be really stable and not have to worry about, whether or not you're going to exist in a few years, which is a scary thought.
Yeah, I think this is something in which we can relate. And so I want to ask you about it. You know,
Mhm.
you mentioned throughout this pod, and you've talked about on Twitter, being from a lower income background, having a mother who became disabled during her time in college, and the I can relate in that a lot, and the fact
Mhm.
that I'm the son of a single mother who didn't make a whole
Mhm.
lot of money. I like got out and dropped out of college and went and became a journalist and got hired at
Mhm.
ESPN 6 months later or 16 months
Mhm.
later. And now I am a solo founder, and I think that for people like us, the people who don't come from a whole lot, and now we're in this like founder journey, it can be even, it adds an extra level of stress. It's not like we are trust fund kids that there's something to fall back on back there. Like our success is directly correlated not only to just the success of our companies, but the success of ourselves, our families, everything around us. Talk to me a little bit about that, like, and how that changes the way you think as a founder.
Ah, it's a tough question. So it's interesting because I think I get this misconception a lot from people that follow me that I'm really rich or wealthy, right? Because I don't know, because we raised $20 million in funding, that means I'm rich now. And I wish, like I promise you, I fucking wish. But that's not the case. Like I have a salary that really goes all to my family and to debt, and then I don't really have much else. But it is really scary. I think not a lot of people know this, but before I started Fanhouse, I was actually, so I had those couple months in college, right, where I was like, oh crap, no money, and I tried stuff. And then during the summer, I started playing around with kind of the ideas of Fanhouse, and then I started my full time investment banking job, which was what I had accepted. I don't know, my sophomore year of college, because I was like, okay, good paycheck. That's what I need from my family. And for about 6 months, I actually worked on Fanhouse and investment banking at the same time, which was crazy. I don't even know how I did it. I don't think I slept like at all because it was like 80 hours of banking till like 2 a.m. and then I do like Fanhouse after I got home from like 2 to 4. But I like loved it so much that I really wanted to. And I think by doing both at the same time, it really gave me, I mean, like a direct comparison of like, wow, like I enjoy this, the fan house work so much more than I do, this job that's just giving me a paycheck. And like, yes, the pay is nice. And like, yes, it provides for a lot of security that my family needs. But I really sat down and I thought about it. And I was like, if I lost, I mean, yeah, if I quit my banking job and I had no money, right? And fan house just, right, we don't pay ourselves. We don't do anything. And I have to really scrap and stress about money again. I just thought that I'd be happier than if I had stayed at banking. And I like went to my mom and I was like, Mom, I like want to talk to you about something. And she's new. She was like, you want to quit your banking job, don't you? And I was like, yeah. Um, and, and yeah, so now, I mean, I think about that alternate world a lot actually, because I would be much more financially stable if I had stayed in banking and if I went PE. Like I actually think about, I was like, if I stayed that route right now, I'd be having like a PE job making like 400K or something. Which I'm definitely not making with Fanhouse. And I'm still, I don't know. Yeah, I'm still struggling a lot. Sometimes months, whatever. Yeah, I'm still struggling a lot. But it's like worth it to me. It's just like, I don't know. I sit with myself and I'm like, is what I'm doing meaningful to me? Yes. Is it making a positive impact for people? Yes. And am I happy? Yes. And when I answer all those questions, like nothing else really matters. Like everything else is kind of just, I don't know, just another like stair to climb, I suppose. And right, I guess if this is even a good analogy at all, but maybe I feel like I'm picking a path that has like, it's like a longer flight of stairs. Like I don't even know where the top is, but I do know that when I make it to the top, it's like more beautiful than if I picked, a shorter flight of stairs. And that's just kind of the life I chose for myself. And I stick with that. But it is very hard and scary. And I always am afraid of failure because if Fan House is over, like, okay, I won't have a job. Shit is gonna really suck. Um, but I'm also confident in my ability to like bounce back. Like I've been through worse in my life, and I'm here now, so I think we'll be okay.
To continue on with your stairs analogy, every single stair is meaningful in its own way too, and I think that's what I like of being a founder now for 2 years is I like
Mm,
everything. Like, people may not care about it outside, but like the growth, the internal growth I've had being that, like, I appreciate every single step, right? Like, and all of that growth as a person, and that's not something you get when you're working.
mhm,
I did almost
mhm,
5 years at ESPN. That was not things I was getting doing that,
mhm.
right? Like, it's not things you were getting doing investment banking. Like,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
yeah.
No, I'm so, so thankful that I got to do this. And I'm so thankful to everyone that has allowed me to get to do this with my life. Like yeah. I mean, the kind of like, I definitely have the highest highs and the lowest lows as a founder, but I mean, every single thing, I would do it again every day.
Couple different questions, both about the platform. One, you all have sort of limited yourself to safe for work content. And I want to ask why.
I think when we founded Fanhouse, like again from my experiences, it was just that was what we felt like was missing in the market, right? Like if it was an adult platform, like there were plenty actually, like between OnlyFans and like, I mean, 20 others, like just for fans, like Friss, like yeah, like there were so many available that I had looked at. And honestly, like I think they did a pretty good job. Like I think I think OnlyFans was doing a better job than we could have as like a new startup with that, right? Like if OnlyFans is dealing with the Amex and the, whatever payment processors, like what is a tiny startup going to do to like figure that out? And I think we were honest with ourselves that like, I don't think, yeah, we can do this better. Adult payment processing is very, very complicated and tricky. Like even with Fanhouse, a safe for work platform, we actually have a lot of issues all the time with subscriptions, right? We use Stripe to process payments, and Stripe has very strict terms against adult processing. We're on the App Store, and Apple, by the way, Apple has its own whole, like, yeah, I don't know, jungle of rules around everything. And they're 30% tax. And then we use like Cloudinary to host content, and Cloudinary all the time will flag content, like even stuff that is like stuff where people are clothed, like get flagged as not safe for work. And then they'll be like, hey, if you don't get rid of all of this, we're gonna like pull your platform and you can't host any like media. Like we run into those things all the time, even as a safe for work platform. And so it's just really tricky. And I think just honestly, like we don't have the team or the resources or the tools to like commit to being an adult platform, because it really is a commitment if you want to go down that route. But that said, like I think what our team was passionate about and what I was passionate about was again, like not the OnlyFans alternative, because I tried OnlyFans and I was just like, I really didn't like that. That's not what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was again, like, how can I draft tweets with the people that like my tweets? And there was no platform for that. So that's what we set out to build.
Yeah, it's more casual. And to your point about like sort of the bar that exists, I think a lot of people don't know this, but the porn industry has some of the best engineers and lawyers that you can find among any industry. Like they are tippity the top, because they have to innovate all the time. Like live video streaming services, by the way, were innovated in the porn industry before Twitch. Like
exactly.
Twitch learned a lot of lessons from them.
Yeah. And because there's so much money, I mean, it's so lucrative that like they are able to afford like really good engineers too. The hiring market is tough, man. Like it is hard to find. It took us like a year to find like a designer. Yeah, it's a rough market, but yeah, like Pornhub has some of the best engineers that I've met. It's insane.
You mentioned the Apple tax, and I've seen your tweets about it. I've covered this a lot. So for context for those unfamiliar, if you are a app on the App Store and you use Apple, you're required to use Apple's payment processors, and there is a big fight and pushback to get rid of this requirement, and some people that have done a workaround. And there's an ongoing lawsuit that just resumed in the appeals court between Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, and Apple, who are in a fight because Epic put in through a sort of like flash patch or whatever you want to call it, very last minute patch, the ability to buy V-Bucks in Fortnite through another payment processing system that was not Apple's. And Apple knocked Fortnite off the App Store last summer for doing so. They've been in court for more than a year. And now whatever happens in this court case is the big thing. But the reason that so many people, and the reason Rosie mentions it, are frustrated with this is that Apple takes a 30% haircut off of your revenues. They've scaled it down a little bit for apps that make under a certain amount of money. But for the most part, it does affect a lot of places. Rosie, you've spoken up about it, and as have many other companies that sort of formed this coalition. For someone who's running, you're not Epic Games. You don't have the sort of financial resources that Epic Games does to go litigate this or go kind of be up Apple's ass in Silicon Valley and try to fix it. What have you found sort of the meaningful way? Because getting a user to kind of go to your website and do it, which benefits you, which benefits the creator, et cetera, more, is not as convenient as just subscribing to them via the app.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how have you worked around it communication-wise, I guess?
It really, really sucks because Apple puts in rules. And I'll just re-explain Apple 30% and like in-app purchase really quickly for people that don't know. And there aren't, a lot of my followers aren't really techie either. And I always try to explain things in really simple ways. But it's like, where I imagine there's a Fanhouse creator and their subscription price is $5, right? And you can pay that. You can totally pay that normally because Fanhouse uses Stripe, right? So you could click the subscribe button and it's processed through Stripe, which takes like 30 cents or something very reasonable off that purchase. Yeah. And then you're able to subscribe for the creator. What happens suddenly is Apple is now like, hey, we want a cut of this thing that has nothing to do with us, that we don't facilitate anything. But because we exist and you're on the App Store, we want 30%. And I'll remind everyone that Fanhouse takes 10% of transactions, right? So creator makes $5, we make $4.50. Apple now wants, God, what is that? I should have done $10. Okay, let's say it's $10. The creator would make $9. We take $1. Now, Apple is like, we want $3 from that. So where the hell does $3 come from? And if it comes from the creator, imagine 30% of all your income is just gone now. Like, let's say, right, if you sell flowers for a living, like someone is making you give them 30% of all that money. So it's really, really unreasonable. It's really exploitative. And it's also very just like illiterate in terms of how creator economies work. Because that's not what Apple doesn't do this to Uber drivers. They don't say like, oh, if you make a ride, then now we get 30% of your ride. Because they understand. Mm-hmm. So for Uber, at least, or right, like I think more still in-person facilitations, they understand that transactions don't work that way when it is one-to-one. But when it comes to online platforms, Apple still doesn't get it, frankly, or maybe they do and they don't care. But what we've had to do with Fanhouse is we had to implement coins. So what you can do is you can buy coins on the web. So like 100 coins is like $1. But in app, 100, it's like 30% more of that. So like you have to pay more in order to get the same amount of coins. Because in that way, so we upcharge the end consumer because we really don't want the creators getting less of their income. Because again, we know how important this is to people's livelihoods. But it still sucks because now people like consumers that don't have a lot of money have to pay more, or like they're paying more and the creator isn't getting any of it, or they're not paying and then that affects the creator income. So that just sucks in so many ways. But what sucks about communication is that Apple doesn't let you communicate to your users. They don't let you communicate to users. Like in the app, you're not allowed to tell people that they're paying an extra fee. We get emails all the time that are like, hey, why is this stuff so expensive? And it's like, it's Apple. And you can't tell them because if you do, Apple kicks you off their app store, which is can we admit like kind of a monopoly, right? Yes. Yes. Like you really can't have an app without being on the app store, and they know that. And so that's why they implement these rules. And yeah, you can't have links. You can't really do anything. All I can do is, I don't know, make a Twitter post. Like you can only talk about it off of Apple or send an email. And come on, who is reading all of our tweets or who is sending emails? Like we are posting about it all the time and people don't know because all they know when they're in the app store is that one price and you can't tell people anything about that price. So it's really awful. And I think a lot of creator platforms are hurt by this or impacted by this, right? Like if you're a Twitter user that uses like Twitter super follows, yeah, you're only seeing like 70% of your income and almost all of it is going to Apple. Twitter barely takes any of it. So I don't know, it really, really sucks to see like both as a founder and as a creator. Like I'm angry about it all the time, like every day. And like you said, like big companies have to bow down to Apple essentially because they're $1 trillion company. And again, you can't have an app without the App Store. So like even like Spotify, Epic Games, like Patreon, like every company, Reddit, Twitter, like every company has tried to fight Apple on this. And when we were going through this with Apple, every investor that we asked is like, don't even fight Apple. Like don't, get taken off the App Store. Like just do whatever they tell you to. And I mean, I don't know, like, again, I am who I am and I'm going to fight for what I believe in. And we took the opposite route and I made a whole tweet thread. If people here haven't read it, you can search my tweets for like hashtag Apple. But I had a tweet that said hashtag Apple that went really viral. All the executives at Apple saw it, and literally the next day we got a call from Apple. And I think we made a lot of noise at that time about this stuff, and generated a lot of awareness. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it's like dropping, I don't know, like a coin into the ocean. It kind of gets lost. But here's what I will say is I really do believe in the power of numbers. And I think the more people that are aware about this and like, I don't know, push Apple to change, I think they eventually will. They just don't feel that pressure right now. But they felt enough pressure right from this one tweet thread to give us a call the next day.
Give you a phone call.
Yeah, and give us like a 6-month extension. So like if one tiny startup can do that, I mean, really imagine what all of us can do together. So yeah, I think it's gonna have to change eventually. Like it's just not gonna work with these times, and it's not gonna work for people, and more people are angry every day.
You mentioned your creator split there. It's 90-10, 90 creator, 10% you all. It is one of the best for the creator, cheapest for the company, of any of the ones that I've seen. I think Substack is maybe the only other that is 90-10 in sort of a creator. And we've seen some platforms get more aggressive on their creator spend. Twitch obviously just said that they're going to start eliminating their 70-30 deals with a lot of their higher end creators that they've signed these preferential deals with. Once they've crossed the $100,000 in threshold of income. Twitch is going full 50-50, and live video service is expensive, but that shouldn't necessarily be the creator's fault. And so I want to ask you about the balance there, because obviously the service y'all are providing, you have to figure out how to make a margin on this thing eventually. And 10% is extremely small for a company. Walk me through the balance of being kind of fair and giving back to your creators, but also doing what you need to do to kind of, your fiduciary responsibility.
No, that is a tightrope to work on all the time. I think basically what we believe is that those aren't necessarily mutually exclusive things, right? Like you can do right for your users and creators while also being a profitable business. They're not inherently at odds, because, right, if your users are happy and they're staying on your platform, then that's profitable for your business. And I think our take rate is one of those things where we're like, hey, what is, fair for what we provide and the tools that we provide, and, will be good for our creators and will still keep us running, right? And I think, again, we chose to be venture backed for a reason too, because we wanted to have that money at our bank in order to like hire engineers and hire out a team on a 10% take rate, because we couldn't have done that on our own. So it's definitely a trade-off. I don't know. I really fully believe in just giving as much to the creator as you can. Like, I mean, if we ever do live streaming, right, or something that costs more, like maybe we do charge more for those services. I don't know, but I do know, again, just present day where our platform is at, like 90-10 keeps us running and it makes creators happy, and that's enough for us.
We had a question from the creator of IndieFold.com. How did you go about establishing trust with creators when you guys first started with Fanhouse?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to the conversation about like, right, I believe that I need to be a creator first to understand creators. And I think that alone really fosters just like goodwill and trust with people, right? Like when I'm going out and meeting a creator for the first time, actually what they see, right? Like if someone's going to my Twitter, what they see first is not even that I'm a founder, is that I'm a creator. And that's all of my content too. Like sometimes I tweet about the cool stuff and like tech things, but that's like 1 out of maybe 10 posts. Like the other 9 is really just like content. And when you see someone that's, like you and doing what you do, I think that establishes trust on its own. But I also put a lot of time and effort into, building trust too. I genuinely love creators. I love connecting with people. But yeah, like I have dinners and hangouts with people, like creators, like all the time, right? A lot of our first users on the platform and how we grew so quickly were that they were just my friends. Like they were creators that I had known for years, right? And the second I was like, hey, I'm building a platform and I think this would work for you, the trust was there. The trust was there to make them download the app and get on and believe in me. And then, of course, we're lucky that it also worked for them. And then they started telling their friends. but that's, yeah, kind of how that trust is established. It doesn't yeah, come out of nowhere. It's really, I think, at least for me, like I've been building it over years, right, of being a creator and like getting to know people and being a genuine person to people.
Good answer. Yeah, it's super important. Again, we've talked about it throughout this entire podcast. Your ability as a creator to be authentic to the product that you were trying to create. Right. It's when you're a content creator, number one, it's a little bit easier to show other people on it. Right. So
Yeah.
this question is from Yipsy Goon. This is, hi Jasmine and Jacob. This is for Jasmine. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in starting Fanhouse?
Ooh. Oh man. There's so many running through my head. I think it really has to do, I think the hardest thing that I've struggled with, is really like building out a team, right? I've had, no skills in that. I'm really good at like creative things and content and marketing, but like hiring is really, really hard. And like, I don't know, so much of it just feels right. It's almost like dating. If that is a good analogy for people, and then you understand how hard, because you understand how hard dating is, right? Like going out, finding the right person, finding how they are compatible with you and gel with you and are able to build something with you is really hard,
Mhm.
because they are definitely one talented people, right? Like there could be like, again, the analogy for dating, like there could be attractive, smart people that you just don't vibe with. And that's the same with hiring. Or there could be people that say they're one thing and then they're not, which happens with hiring. Or there are people, right, like with, who might seem really good on paper. Like, we've hired people with like years of experience or come from like big companies. Actually, like, yeah, like really don't work at a startup because they have no idea how to like be scrappy or be resourceful or like, move fast. And so I have hired so many people that I thought would be good fits. And I mean, it really ended up being terrible. And I'll also take a lot of responsibility here too, right? That like, part of it is also, I probably wasn't the best manager. Like I was 23 out of college trying to train and manage people for the first time. And a lot of the thoughts in my head are just like, I struggle a lot with like getting things down on paper and trying to communicate the same thing to someone. Like people ask me all the time, like, oh, how do you do it? Like, how do you tweet? What's the secret? And I'm just like, I couldn't even explain it. It's just like, it's just a thing. It's just a feeling, right? It's just like a moment of like, oh, I have this thought and here's how to word it in these ways that'll like resonate with people. And then I'm going to send it out to the world. But obviously that doesn't work with a team that like really needs to understand what you're thinking and be on the same page. So I've had so many problems with this. And our team, like I've done like executive coaching to figure it out and like learned a lot of different ways to like communicate to people, especially people, I don't know, double your age, right? That you have to manage. That's a completely, different dynamic that's hard on its own. But yeah, hiring is hard. And then to that extent, like firing is hard when you find out that someone is the wrong person for you, right? Like again, the dating analogy, like breaking up is really hard. People get angry, people curse at you. And then you just have to keep moving as if, right, that didn't happen. But it's like multiple people at once. At least with dating, usually it's like one person to deal with at a time. But with a startup, it's like, I don't know, it just always feels so exponential in how many like new things that you have and how many problems you have as you scale. It's like never ending.
I feel that that's a good one to end on, but somebody did have one more, and this is very much the Jasminericegirl question.
Oh, let's do it.
Ask it.
I have time.
So this is from Eopath, which is favorite soup.
Oh,
and for those unfamiliar, soup is a part. Soup is a part of your brand. You're a big soup fan, so let's have your takes on soups.
Thank you so much for that. And to give people a little bit of context, so I love soup. I'm from a Vietnamese family, and maybe it's a Vietnamese thing, but we always have meals with like soup in it, some type of soup. Like I ate soup every single day growing up, and it's always a different type of soup. Okay, it's not like I don't know the Americans have like chicken noodle and like tomato basil and like cream of mushroom or some shit, and like that's it. No, like we have every single ingredient you can think of like can be put into a soup, and it's amazing. But yeah, I recently found out that there are people that didn't like soup, and again, me being the person that I am, that is chaotic and wants to talk about things that not I don't know, that people might fight me on. Went into a whole soup crusade. I made a bunch of tweets about how great soup is, to prove people wrong. And I did actually. I've gotten a lot of messages from people that are like, you've changed my mind about soup, or like, you convinced me to go eat soup. And I'm like, wow, look at me. I'm like changing the world. One soup at a time. Sorry. I was okay. To answer the question, favorite soups. My favorite soup has to be the soup called cantua. It's a Vietnamese soup. It's like sweet and sour and kind of spicy. It's kind of like Vietnamese tom yum, if people know tom yum soup. But it's like you've got like fish and shrimp and like pineapple and like tomato and veggies. And it's just kind of like a staple for me because it really reminds me of home, which is why I love it. But it's also like very like warm and refreshing to just like, I don't know, drink. But that's my favorite if I had to pick one. But other S tier soups in general, like pho is great, ramen is great, tom yum is great, chicken noodle is good. And by ramen, when I say ramen, I mean both instant, because that has saved my life, and also like good restaurant ramen. Miso soup, also good. I could go on forever.
Yeah, I'm a big like lobster bisque soup kind of person. That's yeah, I like the finer things in life. I lived in the Northeast for a while, and there's some good lobster up in the Boston, Connecticut areas. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the pod. We really appreciate having you. This is a really insightful and heartfelt interview in many different ways. We appreciate you all being here. We won't be back this Wednesday because of the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, but we will be back next week. So thank you all so much for joining us, and have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jacob, for having me.
Thanks for watching Visionaries on YouTube. For more content, please subscribe to the Overcome channel.